Okay, today we're going to start in middle of Tzadik Aleph Amud Beis, and on my Gemara the line ends La'ayel, so we'll start at La'ayel, and the last word of a line. It's let's see, about 18 lines from the top, and we're quoting a pasuk, Parsha Shlach. Before we start, we thank Hashem that we're learning Torah every day. It's supposed about learning. We should have Beis Hamikdash immediately. Now, it doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to continue at 7:30. So I'll let you know tomorrow.
What? Good morning. Missed that.
Good morning. It doesn't seem like I'll be able to continue the 7:30 until the summer.
Oh wow.
I have to go back to 5:30. But let you know tomorrow about Friday. Tomorrow will still be 7:30, and then Friday or Sunday I'll have to switch back. Well, Sunday doesn't matter, but maybe Friday I'll have to switch back.
Okay.
So is that a problem, Ramesha? Or I'm messing up your schedule? Or is it getting easier or harder?
I'm gonna try to.
I'm sorry. I can't hear. You'll figure it out. That's probably what you're saying. I'm not sure, but okay, maybe it's muted or something. Okay, we're learning the in the pasuk in Parsha Shlach. So we said that when you come into the land, you're gonna have to when you bring in these sacrifices, you bring together with these sacrifices, you'll bring the nesachim, the flour and the oil and the wine. Then it says it divides it up into different sacrifices. It starts off with ben bakarim minatzayin. You bring a revia sehin. For the ayil, you bring a shlisha sehin. For the keves. No, the keves echad was a revia. Keves was a revia sehin. For the ayil was a shlisha sehin. And for the ben bakar was a chatzia hen. Yeah. The sheep. Oh yeah. Look at that. For the sheep is a quarter. For a ram, it's a we're on Tzadik Aleph. For a ram, it's a third, and for a cow family, it's going to be a half a hin. So different sizes. Anyway, pasuk says la'ayil for a ram. Gemara asks, la'ayil amali, why does it need to repeat that? We said already before. The ayil, or we'll say it later, la'ayil. Says, Amar Rav Sheshes, the Rabbis Eli Shel Aaron. It's coming to include the ram of Aaron. Now, the ram of Aaron was the ram that was brought on Yom Kippur. Gemara says, really, you have to include the Yom Kippur Karban. That Eli Shel Aaron, that I know from, it says that you have to bring the libations for the holidays. And that if it's on Yom Kippur, then you have to bring it. You could have thought that only things that are on the holidays brought the libations, that's only for community things on the holidays. But since the Ram of Aaron is his own personal sacrifice, so then I would say that maybe he doesn't have to bring it. Gemara says, really? Personal sacrifices, you don't have to bring the libations, the nesachim. You told me already yesterday that when a woman gives birth, she has to bring the libations. That's a private offering. I could have thought that that's something that doesn't have a designated time. And that's why you have to bring the libations. But something that has its designated time, I would have thought that if it's a personal sacrifice, you don't have to bring. So Kamash Malan comes to tell me that the Ram of Aaron also you bring the sacrifice. Okay, you bring the libations. Oy la'ayel lamali. Why does it have the oy? Oy means or. O la'ayel. The rabbi says a palgas. Palgas is an animal that's 13 months old. It's called a keves when it's
A kevis is
it's called a keves when it's within its first year.
Baby lamb.
Baby lamb. Then it's called a ram when it's in its second year. But when it's in the middle, that 13th month, it's called a palgas. No, it's nishtahin nishtaher. It's one of these benashmashas type of.
They full price for the movies.
really good to see.
The Gemara says it's coming to include a palgas that it comes together with the ayah. See, because there's going to be a difference in amount of libations if it's a lamb or if it's a ram. Ram is you have to bring more than for a lamb. What about the palgas? It says oila ayel, or it's coming to include also that the palgas is included in the ram.
The rabbis.
Yeah. Rabbis. Hanich le Rabbi Yochanan damar ber who ditanan. According to Rabbi Yochanan, there's a machlekes about a palgas. Rabbi Yochanan says that a palgas is a beria. It's its own category, its own creation. Ditanan. Ekrivu mevi alav nischayayel v'ena olam yisivchay. When it says you're supposed to bring a lamb or you're supposed to bring a ram and you bring a palgas, so you weren't supposed to do that. But if you did it, so you bring along the libations of a ram, but it doesn't count for your sacrifice because you were supposed to bring the one of a certain age and you didn't bring that. But nevertheless, the libations come along. Now Rabbi Yochanan was the one that says, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi says a palgas. Now we know what it's coming to include. It's coming to include the palgas that you have to bring the libations for a ram. El Bar Pada Damar Maisi Umasni the Sveko. But according to Bar Pada, that says, well, what you're going to do is you're going to bring the palgas, but palgas is not its own category. Palgas is just the doubt. I don't know. Is it considered its first year or is it considered its second year? So what you do is you bring it and you bring the libations with a condition. Say if it's a lamb, then I have the libations here for the lamb. If it's a ram, then I have the libations here for a ram. If it's a lamb, then you have extra libations. So that's just a gift. You can give extra. So you can give it's Krol or Rabuye Sveka. This is an interesting quote. Gemara says, I need the pasuk to tell me something that I have to do when I don't know. Because if you don't know if this is kosher or not kosher. Torah says you have to eat kosher, and you're not supposed to eat non-kosher. And now I have a doubt about this. Do I have another pasuk that tells me what to do about a doubt? No, because by Hashem there's no doubt. It's you don't know. So either you're strict or you're lenient, or depending on what the rule is. But Hashem doesn't have to get into that. Hashem knows what it is, and it is. Now you have to figure that out. So I don't need a pasuk to tell me something that you haven't figured out. By Hashem knows what it is. If it's just a doubt,
But isn't it the whole idea of the rabbis?
The rabbis is coming to include not a doubt. It's coming to include something that, so according to Rabbi Yochanan, that a palgas is another category, and a ram is a ram. A palgas is another category, and comes along the eye and includes the palgas into the category of the ram. Then wonderful. But if you say that palgas is either a ram or a lamb, I'm just not sure. We don't know. It's like benashmashas. What is benashmashas? Is it day or is it night? So it does. So do I need a pasuk to tell me what it is? By Hashem, it's he knows what it is.
The birthday is usually like
No, they
after
know
the
the
first
birthday.
year is considered the second year.
Yeah,
Like a year and 1 day is already on the second year.
Yeah.
So why do they bring
It's its own category. I don't know in the development of it, but it has its own stage.
And Sora Morel and by Nara, who are also the intermediate few months.
Right.
Aren't they learned from Sufim?
Yeah, but that's not a doubt.
No,
That's
it
not
is a
exact-
specific
Right.
time within
Right,
two times.
which is perfect. That's no problem for them. Those specific times is perfect. The question is, what about doubt? If you have something that's a doubt, does the Torah tell you what to do by a doubt?
If you have no doubt, because Rabbi Yochanan is saying you have a
You're missing-
pasuk
you're
that's
missing
telling
Dr.
you this is a
Stein.
paldas,
You're missing him.
then
That's not a doubt. Then that's great because they don't have a doubt.
So he's
But
saying-
according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's good. According to Barpada, that says that it's a doubt. So the oy is coming to include the doubt. Hashem doesn't have the doubt. So the Gemara says, "Vade leBarpada kasha." For Barpada, this is a kasha. We don't have we don't need a pasuk to tell me the doubt. Yeah.
who is
Machlekes
this
Rishonim.
Barpada? We never heard of him.
We've had it.
I mean, where is he?
It's probably in the time of Rabbi Yochanan.
A whippersnapper just shows up.
Oh, yeah. Rabbi Eliezer, no, that's Ben Ketan.
Okay.
I guess he's in it.
Kacha yasel l'shar ha'ayel, l'shar ha'echad, oila ayel ha'echad, oila seb aksav ma'beizim. We're reading the psukim after in Parsha Shlach after the spies, where we have these laws of the libations. And over here it says, this is verse 11. So you shall do, so shall be done. Let's read the English. This is what should be done for each ox or ram, for each young sheep or young goat. Okay. Now we're going to learn each word over here. So I guess just to understand this, let's just explain like this: that there are 3 categories of animals for libations. And no more. 3 categories is a lamb. That's an animal in its first year. A ram is an animal in its second year. And then there's for the bull, which is a cow. So a ram and a lamb are the same family. We left out goats. We didn't mention goats. We didn't mention a female second year. We only mentioned the ram, which is the male second year. We mentioned the male first year, the keves. We didn't mention the female first year. Kivsa, right? Kavsa.
But what is?
We didn't mention that. So we only have 3 categories in the psukim. So let's take a look at the Gemara learns this. L'shar ha'echad, when it says, so you shall do for the one ox. Matam b'leimar, what's it coming to teach me? Because we see that there's a difference between the 2-year-old ram and a 1-year-old lamb, which is the same family. It's just a year older. You know how the kids talk. I'm already one. I told you what happened. I had my kids when my kids was sitting in the car seat, and he's like talking to himself or something. He says, Hashem. He says, I'm 3, but Hashem is 1. That's his understanding of what we were telling him. Hashem is 1. Okay, so. We see that there's a difference between a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. So maybe we should make a difference between a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and when it comes to the cow family, to the bull, maybe we should make a difference over there. So we said no, that entire family gets the same libations, all half a hin, the whole family, whether it's a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, the whole family of cattle, of cows, is always the same. Oila ayel. Now we ask, what about the oila ayel? Because that was the shar, the ox family, right? It goes under it's all the same thing. Oila ayel, or for the ram, which is a female sheep. I'm sorry, a male sheep. Matam, what's that coming to teach me? Because we find that the Torah divides it up between a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. Maybe we should also make a difference between a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. It says, no, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, it's all the same libations. Or for a sheep, or a lamb of the sheep, What's that teaching me? Because we see that the difference between a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, maybe it should make a difference between a female 1-year-old and a female 2-year-old. Talmud Laimar says no. It's always going to be like the 1-year-old. Going to go under the 1-year-old family. Baksavim might be using with sheep or goats. What's that teaching me? Because you see a difference between a 1-year-old male and a 2-year-old male. Maybe should make a difference between a 1-year-old goat to a 2-year-old goat. No, it's all the same. Which category does it go under? Amar Papa Badiklan Rava Niskei Rechela Bekam. No, we know it goes under the keves. Goes under the lamb. Now the question is, Rava asked. Rav Papa says that Rava was investigating how much is going to be the nesachim for a rechela. That's a 2-year-old female sheep. Would it be like a ayel, which is a 2-year-old male, or would it be like a 1-year-old male? It says Parstanalim Masnisan. He answered it from a Mishnah in Maseches Shkalim. It says Gedi Mishamish Nischei Tzoyin Shel Gedolim Shel Ketanim Shel Zacharim Shel Nekevas Chutz Mishel Elam. There's different baskets in the. They had different tokens in the Beis Hamikdash. You would go in, you would purchase a token, and then you would take that token, and then you would use it to get the libations. They would give you a package. Take it over. So what was that?
Just reminiscing on the
With the Y in it?
With the whole. Really good. You could throw it out the window without stopping. They're really quick. The tolls.
This was that Simon used to have a hole.
Yeah.
Then you would put it down the phone hole
the
with a string on it.
phone.
Oh, and then you could pull it back up. Yeah, I heard about that. But you had to have special tokens for each bridge. It was crazy. The Tappanzee had this, the other one had that, and the thing. Okay, anyway,
The subway said the time when the one was cut out.
Oh.
It's before you.
Uh-huh.
And it cost me 10 cents.
Uh-huh.
Travel anywhere in New York City.
You're that old. Wow.
That's
So
vintage.
the token that you would get in the Beis Hamikdash that said Gedi on it, that would get for you the nesachim for any sheep and any goats, with the exception of the ram, which tells me that the female sheep that we were asking, the 2-year-old female sheep, how much is it? Turns out it's the same as the 1-year-old, and it's the same as the 1-year-old male. It's the same as the. Okay, so we got the answer based on that Mishnah of how much the token would get. So the new Mishnah called Karbanas Atzibur Imbam Smicha. There's a mitzvah to do smicha on top of the head of the animal, to lean on it before it's offered. Well, any community sacrifice does not have smicha. You don't do smicha on them. Except for 2. One of them is if the entire congregation sins based on a mistaken verdict from the Bezdin. They all sin, majority of the congregation sins, so they have to bring a karban. And that karban, the zakenim would do smicha. And second exception is the sar mishtalech. There was a goat that was pushed off a cliff, Azazel. So that also required smicha by the Kayin Gadol.
Is this the source for Rabbi's case?
No, this is a different source. This
Why
is
they push them off
the cliff?
and say, "Take your
All day
congregation."
long.
They
That's
have to run
available
the
to you, ladies
congregation.
and
I
gentlemen.
mean, just
After
read
the
the words.
shiur, He's
Pretty
available
much the same as public rabbi.
for parties, for anything.
I'll take him for
I don't
anything.
know what I'm talking about, but I definitely have no idea what you're talking about.
I'll take you for anything.
Talking to me.
Okay. So we have 2 exceptions here. We're going to see in the Gemara that this opinion is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, right? Now, Reb Shimon says, Afsar Avedis Kechavim. I don't know if you have an old Gemara. My Gemara says Lamed Kaf. It's supposed to be Kaf Lamed. Afsar Avedis Kechavim, period. Do you have call?
Yeah.
Oh, mine says Lamed Kaf, and I'm trying to figure out this morning if it's a Rosh Tevis or something. Then I just realized that it's just a mistake. Happens. The print, they have to put the letters in. They have to slide them along the thing. They did it wrong. So,
A lot of these.
and this Gemara apparently. Yeah, this is it's a copy of the old Vilna print. Are you saying that this one itself was just a copy of that? Yeah.
You're more than handsome.
Okay. So, Reb Shimon says that the sar of Avedis Kechavim, this is if the congregation sinned with idolatry, then they would have to do smich on that as well. If the Bezdin made a psak that a certain type of idolatry is permissible, and the congregation did it, and then they ended up they had to bring a sa'ir, a goat, and they would do smich on that. Afsar Avedis Kechavim. Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to put. Kol karbanas hayachid tunin smicha. All private sacrifices require smicha. Chutz min b'char ma'aser pesach, except for the firstborn, tithe, and the carbon pesach. They don't require smicha. Now the Gemara just adds in, the Mishnah adds in, just like an interesting halacha, that Yoresh, if someone inherits his father's sacrifice, he can do smicha in place. He's going to bring it because it was his father's. His father passed away. His father was supposed to bring a sacrifice. He brings it, not a chatas, but other sacrifices. He brings it, and he does smicha as if he's the owner. Maybe nesachim. He also brings the libations along the meimar, and he can also do tamura on his father's sacrifice. You can say that I'm exchanging this one for another, which is not allowed to, but if he does, it's actually effective. Taner Rabbanan. So we're just going to elaborate on this machlekes between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda regarding which two exceptions there are for community sacrifice that require smicha. Taner Rabbanan was taught in the brayso, kol karbanos tzibarim bem smicha. You don't do smicha. You don't lean on the head of the animal. Chutz mi parabal kalmis, except for the par, the bull that comes because of the violation of the mitzvahs, which is based on a psak of the Bezdin, the sir Avedis Kechavim, and also the goat of Avodah Zarah. If a similar thing happened, the Bezdin paskin that a certain type of Avodah Zarah was permissible. Divrei Reb Shimon, that's Reb Shimon's opinion, which that's what we learned in the Mishnah. The only thing is from the Mishnah, it looked like Reb Shimon was adding in a third one. It says Afsar Avedis Kechavim. That's what it looked like. And from the brayso we see that he only holds that there's two. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Sar Avedis Kechavim, Ein Bem Smicha. Rabbi Yehuda says Sar Avedis Kechavim does not have smicha. You don't lean on the goat of Avodah Zarah. So who am I going to bring instead of the Sarah? You have to replace that with something. So it says Sar Mishtaleach. I'll replace it with the Sar Mishtaleach. The Gemara asks, Leisagi D'Leimayel. Is it why do you have to add anything in? It's not enough. Just leave it. Why? Okay, you take it out. You have to fill it up with something else. It's like the opening over there. It says, Amar Ravina. Ravina answers, Gemiri, we have a tradition that shtei smichas b'tzibur, that there's always going to be two, that there's two smichas, two leaning for community sacrifices. Two tzibur leanings. Now, Rabbi Yehuda has the goat that you push off the cliff, and Reb Shimon has the Sarah of Avodah Zarah. Amalei Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says, "V'lein smicha b'bailam." So Reb Yehuda filled it in with the goats, right? Reb Shimon tells him back. See, that would be the Gemara interjected in the middle of the brayso. Why does Reb Yehuda have to fill it up with something? Well, he said, because we have this tradition. Now we go back to the brayso. Reb Shimon tells him, "Lein smicha b'bailam." Yeah, the owner's supposed to do smicha. And Aaron and his sons, or the Kohen Gadol leans on it, but it's not the owner. Amalai. So Rabbi Yehuda responded back, I know that the goat that's pushed off the cliff is a kapara for all of Klal Yisrael, but included in Klal Yisrael is also Aaron and his sons. They're also considered owners, so they can lean on. It's no problem. They're no worse than everyone else. Okay, now it turns out that Reb Shimon's going to hold that the goat that's pushed off the cliff is not for Aaron and his sons. It's only for Klal Yisrael and not for them. So that's why they have this discussion. Amar Reb Yirmiyah. Reb Yirmiyah says that this machlekes Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon regarding this animal that's pushed off the cliff follows another machlekes between Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon. The Tanya was taught in a braysa. The Chiperes Mikdash HaKodesh. There was we're talking about the sprinkling of the blood that was done from the bull and the goat that was brought inside the sanctuary on Yom Kippur.
That create an issue for the one that had whether they were part of it or not. Because if by the goat you separate
That's the Yom Kippur sacrifice. In Yom Kippur we have other sacrifices for each one. In Yom Kippur we didn't. This is something else. That has nothing to do with Yom Kippur, the sacrifice of the Sanhedrin. Right? Because on Yom Kippur we have different sacrifices. You'll see. It says that there's an atonement that's done for someone that contaminates the temple. And these sacrifices are being brought for an unknown contamination. It was hard to know. Maybe they were contaminated, they entered into the temple, they did something, and they didn't know that they were contaminated. So they have these atonements on Yom Kippur. It says it's atonement for the Mikdash HaKodesh. What is that referring to? This is an atonement if someone, the Kohen Gadol, entered into the inner sanctuary, into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and he was tamei. What's that referring to? Zehechel. That's referring to the outer sanctuary. Mizbeach. This is that we don't have to explain to you. That's Kamashmai. That's exactly what it means. If someone came to the Mizbeach and he was tamei and he didn't know about it, so this would be an atonement. Yechaper. That's an atonement. Elu Azaris. This will atone for the courtyards, which if someone was contaminated. Kayanim means kayanim, kamashman. No, we don't have to tell you kayanim. Al kol amakol for the whole congregation. El Yisrael. This is for the Jewish people. Yechaper, it will atone. Elu alaviyim. What comes out at the end is hushvu kulam lakapara achas. Shemiskaprim bisar hamishtaleach. The entire congregation is all atoned with the sar hamishtaleach, with the goat that's pushed off. Rabbi Yehuda is Divri Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, and he's learning that this is an atonement for the entire congregation. Everyone gets atoned by the Sar Mishtaleach. Now, this is Rabbi Yehuda's Shita, who holds that the Kayanim are included, the Sar Mishtaleach. Therefore, the Kayan Gadol can lean on it. He's one of the owners of it. Reb Shimon says, Kshem Shedam Sar Nas Bifnim Mechaper Al Yisrael, just like the blood of the goat, which is brought inside, is an atonement for the Jewish people. Ultimus Mikdash HaKadosh. If there was an unknown contamination, so the Kayanim also have their own atonement. If there was an unknown contamination, and they bring the bull, there's a goat and a bull that comes inside. Now it says, the Sar Mishtaleach, which is pushed off the goat that's pushed off the cliff, is an atonement for Israel, B'shar Averis, for other things, not contamination. So also, the vidoy, the confession of the par on the bull is an atonement for the kayanim for other averos. Okay. So Reb Shimon basically what he just did over here is he excluded the kayanim from the soyer that goes to Azazel. So when the goat that's pushed off. If that's the case, then that explains Reb Shimon's question to Rabbi Yehuda. Why is the Kohen Gadol doing smicha on it? He's not an owner. Not why is he doing smicha? It's not considered a smicha because that's not he's not the owner of it. Reb Shimon Havada Yoshvu in Havada Yoshvu, but there is a comparison over here because the pasuk says that they're compared. It's a atonement for everyone. The Gemara says in Hushvu the Bnei Kapara yes. They're all considered getting an atonement. But each one gets his own atonement. So they're all atoned, but each one gets his own. The Rabbi Yehuda, Tumas Mikdash Kadasha of Yisrael Mechapri Bedam Sor Anase B'fnim. According to for Rabbi Yehuda, if there's contamination of the temple, then the Jewish people get their atonement with the blood of the goat that's brought inside. Kayanim, where do they get their atonement? The partial Aaron, with Aaron's. Aaron brings one for his family if there's contamination. B'shar Averis, when it comes to other Averis, Elu Mechapri Bevidis Mishtaleach. Rabbi Yehuda holds that everyone gets their atonement with the goat that's pushed off. Elu means the Kayanim and the rest of Israel. The Reb Shimon says he agrees with them about the Tumas Mikdash Kadasha, about the contamination. But when it comes to Shar Averis, B'shar Averis Nami Kayanim Bevidi Depar Miskapri. The Kayanim get their atonement also with that par. The par that was an atonement for the contamination, that's also an atonement for other Averis when it comes to the Kayanim. Keduktani. This was taught in a Mishnah or a Brisa. Echad Yisrael, Echad Kayanim, Echad Kayin Mashiach. Whether it's a Jewish person, whether it's a Kohen, or whether it's a Kayin Gadol. What's that Dalet there? All get an atonement. Ma ben Yisrael l'kayinim l'kayin Mashiach. What's the difference between them? Ella shadam apar mechaper l'kayinim l'tumas mikdash kedashav. Rather, the blood of the par is an atonement for the kayinim for the contamination. Zudiv Rab Yehuda. Reb Shimon says, Kshem shadam asar nasa b'fnei mechaper Yisrael kachdam apar mechaper l'kayinim. Reb Shimon says that just like the blood of the goat is an atonement for the Jewish people, so too the blood of the bull is an atonement for the kayinim. Now, Kashem Shavidi Shel Sar Mishdalech Mechapal Yisrael, just like the confession of the goat that's pushed off is an atonement for the Jewish people. Also, the viday of the par is an atonement for kayinim. We just elaborated on the fact that Reb Shimon holds that the goat that's pushed off the cliff is not an atonement for the kayinim; it's only for Yisrael. And Rabbi Yehuda says it's also an atonement for the kayinim for other averis that don't include Tumas Mikdash.
What is this thinking? Why?
The goat that's pushed off from the par, they have all of their sins get all categorized together. Okay, the Tumas Mikdash goes together with the rest of the averis for the kayinim. Yeah, that may be the concept of it. Is that for a Jewish person, a regular Israelite, the contamination of the temple has its own category. It's like, he doesn't know about it, doesn't know that it has its own category. The Kayanim, according to Reb Shimon, contamination of the temple and any other sin is all goes together. That's what's happening.
Speak up.
This two cold volume is different from Rav Shimon that he quotes that it's for like the ruling. That seems like
No. The goat of the root of the wrong ruling that wasn't in this discussion.
no, but that was where Shimon he quotes both like general ruling and also like one of idolatry. Those were his two cases.
Yeah, and Rabbi Yehuda didn't have the one of idolatry.
But he brings
The goat that's pushed off instead.
which doesn't mind. Because then he says that it doesn't make atonement.
Rabbi Yehuda says it does atone for the coin.
Oh,
Yeah, and that was the machlekes. Reb Shimon says that you can't use that because the owner is not doing smicha on it. He says no, the owner is doing smicha on it. The machlekes was, does it atone for the kayinim? Reb Shimon says it doesn't. That's why he claimed that you don't have the owner. And Rabbi Yehuda says it does, and that's why he said it does have the owner. Right? Taner Rabbanan, towards the bottom of the page, on Sadik page. It says, "V'samchu ziknei eidas yideim al reisha par." The elders will lean their hands on the head of the bull. Now, this is talking about if there was a mistaken ruling by the Sanhedrin. So, ton smicha, mistaken ruling by the Sanhedrin for a regular Avera, that does require smicha. says al reisha par ve'ein seiri avedis kechavim tunin smicha. It's an exclusion. It says that only the par they have to lean on. But if they did the same mistake regarding avodah zara, and they have to bring a goat, par is a bull. They would have to bring the goat. That other very similar situation, but it seems that we're excluding the goat from smicha. Partans come to smicha. The Rabbi Yehuda, that's where Rabbi Yehuda gets it from, to make this contrast between the two. Reb Shimon Aimer, Reb Shimon says, Partan smicha b'zakenim. Am I using the room when something else goes on it? Oh. Partan smicha b'zakenim vein sira v'tzcham tan smicha b'zakenim. Reb Shimon says that the par requires smicha with the elders, and sira v'tzcham does not require smicha with the elders. Ela ba'arain. Reb Shimon says what you were deducing is correct. That the par is unique, different than the goat of avodah zara. Rabbi Yehuda says the goat of avodah zara doesn't have smicha. Reb Shimon says not that it doesn't have smicha. It doesn't have smicha with the zakenim the way the par does. It has smicha with Aaron. The kohen does smicha on it. Okay, the Gemara says v'raminu. There's a contradiction. It says hachai. Do you have the source where that pasuk is? Yeah, it's by in Achrimais, the living goat. Reish Hasar Hachai. It says on the head of he leans on the living goat, right? Chaiton smicha ba'aron. The living goat requires a smicha. But the other goat, the one for not the one that's pushed off, one for avodah zara, ain't avodah kechavim tunin smicha ba'aron ela b'zakenim. It's not Aaron, it's the zakenim that get the smicha. It says, oh, that's a big problem for Reb Shimon, because Reb Shimon holds that that was the whole point, that the goat of avodah zara doesn't have smicha by the zakenim, it has specifically by Aaron. And who's saying this? Reb Shimon Aimer. Reb Shimon, it's a contradiction in Reb Shimon. Amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes says, you gotta love this, how the Gemara does this. It says, V'tizbra dahach kamaisim eteresti. Do you think that brisa makes sense anyway? We have other problems with that brisa. Amar Rav Shimon, smicha b'bailam binan. We know that Reb Shimon holds that the owner has to do smicha. That was what Reb Shimon complained to Rabbi Yehuda about. How could you get the goat of that's being pushed off the cliff, that the kohen is the one that's doing the kohen gadol is doing smicha? He has nothing to do with that. He's not the owner. And here we're saying that parton smicha b'zakenim vein sira v'tzcham to the elad ba'aron. Aaron's doing smicha there. The kohen's doing smicha. He was not part of that. So Ella taritzachi. Rather, we're going to have to explain it as follows. Par, it says in the pasuk par. Parton smicha vein sira v'tzcham to smicha. The Sarah of avodah zara doesn't require smicha de Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Aimer, Shimon says hachai. It says in the pasuk that the living goat requires smicha. Hachai tan smicha ba'aron vein sira v'tzcham to smicha ba'aron ela b'zakenim. The chai requires smicha. The living goat requires smicha on it. But when it comes to a goat of avodah zara, that's the smicha is not done by Aaron. It's done exactly the opposite by the zakenim. V'achi kamerles. And now it seems that they're arguing about the Sarah, but yeah, they're arguing about the Sarah of avodah zara, like we knew before. V'achi kamerle Reb Shimon Rabbi Yehuda. And Reb Shimon is telling Rabbi Yehuda the following. Yeah. See, this was the wrong decree about idolatry. They're saying that idolatry, a certain type of idolatry, was permissible. So here, Reb Shimon is telling Rabbi Yehuda that the goat of avodah zara, when the best in paskin about the avodah zara, mistakenly they bring the sacrifice, they have to do smicha. V'ishmielach the leiboy smicha, and if you ever heard anywhere that doesn't require smicha, what you probably heard is Aaron who deshmielach. It was that Aaron doesn't have to do the smicha. Umiyuta me'achayhu. And it's the limud. Where do we know that from? Because it says by Aaron does smicha on the goat of by Yom Kippur, but on this one he doesn't do smicha. You see, he's telling Rabbi Yehuda where Rabbi Yehuda made his mistake.
Pass it around the corner.
Johnny on the pony.
Where the Zakanim? I mean, all the Zakanim, all the elders, the Sanhedrin.
He's a well.
I'm not sure if it means all the elders or if it means a delegate from them. I'm not sure. Rabbi Yehuda lamali lemeitinu mikra. Why does Rabbi Yehuda have to learn from a pasuk? He said me'apar. He says that only the par gets smicha, not the sar v'dazar. Why does he have to deduce and exclude it because we're based on a pasuk? Amar Ravina Gemir stay smichas betzibar. We have a statement from Ravina that there's only two smichas with the congregation, and he already used the two. He has the sar that's pushed off the cliff, and he has the par of the Sanhedrin makes a mistake, so he doesn't need the pasuk to exclude the goat of Avodah Zarah. Where it says Gersa Ba'alma. Now, two interpretations for this Gersa Ba'alma. One interpretation is when Ravina told us that there's only two, he was just giving us a way to remember. But that's not a real Gemiri Halacha L'Moshe Misinai tradition like this. The other interpretation is that the pasuk that Rabbi Yehuda is using is just a way to remember, like asmachta ba'alma, like Gersa Ba'alma means like asmachta. It's a support, but it doesn't really mean that we're using that to actually teach it to me. We do have another source for it. This is just a way to remember, because people would remember things based on psukim. Okay, Reb Shimon, how does Reb Shimon know that the goat of Avodah Zarah requires smicha? That means if the congregation worshipped idols based on a ruling of the Sanhedrin, which was mistaken, then the Sanhedrin would have to bring the sacrifice. Nafkalan midatani. He learns it from the following brisa. It says, he leans his hands on the sar, the rabbisar, nachshon l'smicha. This is coming to. This is the.
So what's it? Does Rav Shimon say seer of this kafah needs smicha?
Yeah, needs.
So what does he say at the top of the page?
Oh, Elabis Kanim, by the elders.
So they need it, but
not by Aaron. Yeah, that's what he thought Rabbi Yehuda was making this mistake with.
Okay, so here when he's saying that it needs it, it's referring to this
Kanim. Yeah. So, but if a nasi, if a king does an avera, so he brings a special type of karban, different than everyone else. It's called the sar of the nasi. So what it says is, yeah. It says v'samachiyad al reish sar. He has to lean on his puts his hands on the head of the goat. L'rabbe sar nachshon l'smicha. This is it doesn't have to say on the head of the goat again. We know we're talking about the goat. So it says it's coming to include that when Nachshon brought his sacrifice back then, he also did smicha. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Shimon says l'rabbe sar v'yitzcham l'smicha. It says the goat. Oh, goat! It's coming to include the sar v'yitzcham. That would be our source. Reb Shimon would say kol chatay shenichnas dama lifnim tuna smicha. Reb Shimon says that any blood, any chatas that the blood comes inside requires smicha, which is true. The nasi, the par of kolaverus, par halam davar, and the animals on Yom Kippur require smicha, right? So yeah. So now the Gemara says, Lama li lememra. Why does he have to tell me that? We already know that. Let me just see this Kimmel. Lamali, why this? You take out the memra. Shahaya simana ba'alma. That it should be just a way of remembering that any animal. If you have a pasuk, why do you have to tell me the rule? It's coming to tell me the rule to make it easier to remember. It's good to have rules. That okay. Actually, you know what? I have to stop right here.
Oh,
Let me see. Just if there's a.
but now going to talk about the goats and Russians.
Okay.
Good stuff.
We're stopping at the first line. The aim asar hanasa b'fnim. There's a discussion go back and forth. I'm sorry, it's in the middle, but I have to run.
Oh, man.
So we were
Tomorrow.
discussing. Tomorrow is we'll just continue 7:30, but I'm gonna have to go back to
Tomorrow is
5:30.
7:30.
Gonna have to go back to 5:30 either Friday or.
The end is New Year's thing?
Yeah. Well, I need another 2 months at 5:30.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love the exorcism.
I know. So do I.
It's a vacation. It's
So
like
do I.
a condo living.
I tried pushing it, but
It's like retirement village. Sunny acres. Back to the trenches.
So Friday should be 5:30.
Warriors.
Fine, that makes sense. Friday should be 5:30. Back in Shulchan. So 5:30, and then.
When I was about to buy a polyester
Now down
jumpsuit.
below on the spot.